Okay, well, welcome you guys to our team call tonight. I am excited. We're going to be wrapping up our the past 5 weeks. We've been reviewing this book by Presley Swaggerty, our Be, Do, and Have More. It's a great book. Those of you who are looking for maybe a new personal growth book, leadership book, network marketing book, that's a really great one to check out. And so we've been kind of just hitting some high points. Basically, the premise of his book, he talks about first starting with be more, becoming more, developing yourself personally as a leader, thinking about your mindset, your beliefs, that kind of a thing. And once you become more, then you can do more. More opportunities open up to you. You take more risks. You take more action. And then you can have more. You can have more success. You can have, again, more opportunities and just opportunities to continue growing and have all of those dreams and those goals, come true for you. Let me hide this video panel so that you guys can see all of that. There we go. So tonight, the last few topics we're going to talk about is the idea of commitment and the idea of hard work and going to work every day and we talked about this a little bit last week in setting your goals and making sure that your goals align with your dreams. And so it kind of is only fitting that now we're going to go into the idea of commitment. And I know that this is not an unfamiliar topic when it comes to Plexus. Or network marketing, we talk about this a lot. So let me just share this quote. This is kind of how he opens this section of his book. He says, once a man has made a commitment to a way of life, he puts the greatest strength in the world behind him. So this is the idea of making a climb without a safety rope. It's the idea of removing the exit strategy. And he kind of gives the story. I don't know if all of you guys have seen the Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises. And it's when Bruce Wayne, basically he gets captured and he's kind of in that like dark, deep pit. It's like a prison and there's other people in there with him. And he spends all this time rebuilding his strength because he wants to climb out of the pit. And it's basically like really sharp rocks. The walls are real jagged. And the story is nobody has ever made it out alive. People have tried to climb out of this pit. They've died trying. The only person that's ever succeeded is a little boy. And so that was enough to give Bruce Wayne the hope that he could succeed at this. So he regains his strength and he tries to climb the wall 2 times. And both times he is kind of harnessed by a rope and he falls. He doesn't make it out. And so basically, I guess there's this old wise man in the pit who is kind of like, he's dying basically. And he says, the only way that you can get out of this, you have to climb it the way that the child did, which was without a rope. And so when he removed the rope, it basically removed his safety net. It was like, you have to succeed at this or else you're going to die trying, kind of a thing. And so, that whole story ends with he obviously gets out of the pit. But Presley in the book just shares that story to kind of relay this idea that until we remove our safety net, our plan B, our exit strategy, until we remove that, we're really not fully committed. Like we're in it, but we're not in it. We're not really committed all the way. So I think that's one question really we do need to ask ourselves is, do we still have in the back of our minds that escape plan or that voice, in the back of our mind saying, well, if this doesn't work out or when this doesn't work out, I'll just go do this instead. Think about that. And if you've got that voice in your mind, really assess that and try and get rid of it and remove that exit strategy. Same idea, burning the ships. Shares a story about Spaniards back in like 1500s. They invaded a land and the commander basically ordered all the soldiers to burn all the ships once they landed on enemy soil because it took out any possible thought in all the soldiers' mind that they could retreat. Like they had to fight the war at whatever cost. They could not turn and run. And so it's in Plexus, what we talk about is the idea of drawing your line in the sand. And kind of making that commitment that this is where I stand. This is where I've decided I am in this. I'm going to do something different with my life. I'm going to take this all the way. And when you take that level of commitment, things really do start to fall into place. And I know I've heard it said, I mean, I have several friends that they've quit their traditional jobs, and not all of them did it once they got to Emerald. I mean, one of my good friends, she quit when she ranked up to senior gold, and she was a counselor in a school, and she was like, you know what? I'm not stopping here. And she quit her job, and she was like, that's enough to wake you up. When you realize you have no backup plan, I'm not saying we should all go out and like quit our jobs. That's not what I'm saying, but it's that idea of then you really give it everything you've got because you've got nothing else, and you are so invested and so committed to making it work. So draw your line in the sand and make that commitment. And here's another quote for you guys. This is Abraham Lincoln that says, always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other one thing. So once your desire and your commitment to be successful becomes so powerful that like you think about it all the time, it's on your mind every day, you will have that commitment. Your desire will become a commitment. And it's when you take your goals and your dream, you go beyond just dreaming, and you go to work, to make those things basically a reality. And so a couple of things he talks about with this that I really liked was that commitment, it's a quality that really has a greater impact than ability. And so I think that this is important. We look for people who have like, oh, they'd be really good at this for blah, 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 blah. But, finding people who we know are people of their word or who have shown great commitment to other things in their life. I mean, that is a quality you really want to develop in yourself, but I think you want to look for that in other people too. And it's hard because commitment, it's invisible. It's present in every single successful person, but it's kind of one of those invisible traits. You can't really see it. It's not really tangible. You can't touch it, but it goes way beyond ability. Sometimes it can, supersede the ability, and it can have a greater impact. And so the other idea he shares that I really like is he talks about how we each have the same 24 hours in the day available to us, which basically equates to 8,760 hours a year. And that during those 24 hours, during the day, winners and losers, we basically all do the same thing. We get up, we eat, we sleep, we wake up, we go to work, we play with our kids, we interact with our spouse, we talk, we listen, we talk to friends, we engage, we connect, whatever. But the difference is that winners do all of those same things, but they go through their day thinking about winning and thinking about their dreams every single day. It's like on the forefront of their minds. And so because of that, they get to work every day. They do something that gets them a little bit closer to those dreams. And so he talks about this magical word. And he says he has found that true commitment can be found in one word. And that word is until. And the word until removes all doubt, and it removes all chances of quitting. It kind of like closes off all the other options. So this is what it would sound like. I will reach out to people until I make a sale. I will stay up late, training myself until I reach my goal of senior gold ambassador. I will, train my new ambassadors until I find the right person who wants to run with this. So that's kind of the way that it works. So your commitment can be wrapped up in this word until, because it makes you continue working, until that one thing happens. And so he shared this story. I've shared it before on a call, and I know we've heard other ambassadors talk about this, involved versus committed. And it's that fable of the pig and the chicken. The pig and the chicken, they're friends. They're great friends. They're walking down the road. And the chicken says to the pig, you know what? We should open up our own restaurant. And the pig's like, that's a great idea, but what would we call it? And the chicken thinks for a little minute, and then he replies, why don't we call it ham and eggs? And the pig says, I don't think so. you just be involved, but I be committed. And so it's that whole idea of involvement versus committed. So like, obviously ham and eggs, the pig, he would be committed because if there's no ham coming in, he's what's for breakfast, basically. So I think that this is a really good thing for us to self-reflect, not just for ourselves, being, are we involved in this or are we committed? And someone who's involved, you know, they're kind of like, they're in it. Maybe they're given the lip service, like they want to do these things, or they post every now and then. They're kind of involved, but they're not really committed. And so really ask yourself, who are you? I mean, are you the chicken or are you the pig? And I think as leaders, it's good for us to ask ourselves, the people who join us, you know, what's their level of commitment? Are they a chicken or are they a pig? And sometimes we get frustrated trying to turn those chickens into pigs when maybe all they want to do is be a chicken. They just want to be involved. And so we need to support them in that level, you know, and then the people who are committed, that's where we need to pour our time and our effort and our energy. But as far as you go, you need to take yourself from being a chicken to becoming an egg. And it's really a mindset. You know, commitment is a mindset. It's a decision. It's a choice. And it's really what give winners that competitive edge. So because it's that commitment that kind of makes you put on your blinders and you kind of have a one-track mindset, and you'll, you know, your vision is clear. You'll do whatever it takes. No obstacle is going to get in your way. So I really love that little story. And it's just always good to kind of find out what have I been this month? Have I been a pig or have I been a chicken? You know, where has my commitment level been? So, okay. So the other idea that he talks about is kind of going back to that whole idea of drawing your line in the sand, taking a stand, telling yourself, this is it, you know, this is my opportunity. And what I'm talking about now with Plexus, this is my opportunity to go all the way, to make my dreams come true, to get out of my job, to pay off my debt, whatever it is. Failing is not an option. And I'm going to fight for this until I win. And so a couple questions to ask ourselves is, you know, have you, for one, drawn your own line in the sand? And are you standing tall in that? Are you staying committed to that? Or are you wavering in that place of like quitting, basically? And we talked about this last week with our goal setting and our daily routines, and just that whole idea that quitting is easy. It's like the easiest cop out in the world, is what he said. And most people quit. That's the thing, is that most people will quit things in their life. A lot of people will quit Plexus. It's easier. He says this, and I like it. He says it's easier to get to the top. It's much easier than you think, because the top isn't crowded. It's the bottom that's crowded. By the time you get to the top, you've kind of weeded through all of those people who are going to quit, because like I said, there's going to be people that quit. So never, ever quit. And to kind of summarize that whole concept of not quitting, he shares, and we've all heard this 3 feet from gold. And it's kind of that idea we talk about, like Celeste has shared some great videos about this, that if you knew you had hidden treasure in your backyard, you knew that there was a pot of gold somewhere in your backyard, guaranteed it's there, would you stop digging? Like, would you just keep digging until you found it? Or would you dig a couple holes and say, you know what, I'm never going to find this. I quit. I give up. That's kind of the idea of this story. He said that there's an old miner who dug for gold for many, many years on his land, and he found very, very little gold. And so one day he just completely gave up and he sold the mine. And the new owner who came in, and he said, okay, I'm going to just start digging where this guy left off. And he dug for a few days. And after just a few days, he discovered one of the largest gold mines of its time. It was worth millions and millions of dollars. And so had that old miner continued digging even just 3 more feet, he would have made his fortune. You know, it would have been his discovery. But he quit. And so it's that idea of like deciding to be different, because we know most people are going to quit. So deciding to not give up and staying in the game. Staying in the game is one of the most common qualities of high achievers, because they just simply refuse to give up. Taking those 5 swings we talked about last week, those 5 swings with your axe to the tree. You do that every day. Eventually, that tree is going to fall, and Plexus is no different. Network marketing is no different. It's a numbers game. It's a time game. If you hang in there long enough, you increase your chances and your odds drastically that something positive and good is going to come your way. So the longer you persist, the more likely you're going to succeed. And that's not to say that, oops, I should have changed the slide. Sorry about that, guys. That's not to say that you won't want to quit, because you're going to want to. There's going to be times that that you want to quit. There's going to be months that are bad, days that are bad, people that leave you that you think are going to be amazing. And so there's going to be things that happen that make you want to quit. But you need to always ask yourself, okay, if I quit, follow that decision through, see it through in your mind. If I quit, where will I be in a year? Will I be closer to my dreams, or will I be farther away? How will I be feeling a year from now if I quit? Will I regret it? Will I always be asking myself, what if? Will I see that these people didn't quit and I'm going to be beating myself up over it? Kind of follow that through and just see where it gets you. And that's I've had to do that several times, because like I said, you're going to have good days and bad days. And the persistence, it comes in honestly on those bad days. That's when you really, really need it the most, because that persistence is going to be what allows you to face those disappointments without quitting. So I love this quote this was in his book. It says, doubt. So, okay, the idea that, a lot of people, it's really easy to go and keep going in the good times, but when things get tough, again, that's when momentum slows down, things don't go the way we want to, we get out of pace, we get out of sync. That's when discouragement comes. That's when doubt creeps in. When doubt comes, what happens a lot of time is people take a break. They take a step back. They get discouraged, and so they do less. And really, you should be doing more. During times of discouragement, that's when you need to double your efforts. You need to double down and double your actions, because doubt will take you out of action, but action is what's going to move you out of doubt. So even when you don't want to do something, that's when it's most important for you to do something, do something. And we'll talk about this again a little bit later, but we've heard it said, the cure to anything that ails your business is action. So when you're not feeling like doing it, that should be kind of like that red flag in your brain. That's like, oh gosh, okay, I'm not feeling like doing it. That means I need to actually it's even more important for me to do it. And so when you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. And that's Franklin Roosevelt's quote. And it's just basically, keep going. When the time gets tough, set yourself apart from everybody else, and don't quit. Nothing in the world that's great is really worth having if it's not going to be easy. Nothing that's great comes easy is basically what I'm trying to say. So when you quit, and this is true, we've all seen this to be true. When you quit, you significantly decrease your chances of bouncing back. And this is why we always talk about, don't take a break. Now, I'm not saying, life happens and things come your way. And sometimes that's one of the great things about having a team and having a residual type business like this is you can kind of go with the ebb and flow of life to an extent. But when you take a significant break from your business, from posting, from reaching out, from all of those IPA things, you drastically decrease your chances that you can get back in the habit and bounce back. So don't quit, because you do never know. Your rock star could be right around the corner. You could be one post away from someone ordering or joining. It goes back to just waiting. The timing has to be right for those people. So he talks about too that one of the biggest challenges he thinks that people face is impatience. And I can attest to this, because it's not usually that we've totally failed necessarily. It's just that maybe we aren't succeeding as fast as we want. We get really impatient with our journey, and we have to always remind ourselves we're all on a different journey. And maybe You just haven't given yourself enough time to let that whole principle of compounding effect, take place. You haven't given it enough time for your network of people to be at a place where they're ready for a change. Maybe you haven't given enough time for your level of influence to be strong enough for certain people. They need to see you doing this consistently. And so that's really sometimes one of our greatest enemies is our impatience. We see other people, and there are people that shoot up through the ranks fast. I mean, we've seen it, and it's amazing when it happens. But that is not the norm. That is not the majority. The majority are trucking along, moving along at the same pace that we are. So give yourself time to be successful. And just remember, every call that you make, every post that you make, every contact or conversation that you have, the relationships that you build that have nothing to do with Plexus, all of that over time, I mean, those are the things that are making your business successful. And those are the investments that over time, they are going, they're going to pay off. So just keep telling yourself that it's going to be worth it in the end. And it's in your best interest to not quit and to stay persistent. So with that in mind, the whole idea of being committed, it kind of bleeds into, you got to be committed. You got to say that you're committed, but then you've got to get to work. And great works are performed not by strength, but by perseverance. And so it's this idea that everyone knows. I mean, deep down, we all know what it takes to win, but very few of us are actually willing to do the work and to make the sacrifices and to pay the price. So are you willing, to pay the price? You know what it takes. I mean, we know that. We hear, sometimes we're kind of always waiting for like the next best training or the next best, like, whoa, if I could just get my hands on like the next greatest idea of what I need to do in my Plexus business. But we all know by now, we know what it takes to be successful. The question is, are you willing to do those things? Are you willing to go to work and stay persistent in it? And not just like listening to all the trainings and reading all the books, putting it into action. The world doesn't pay you for what you know, it pays you for what you do. So it's like the world, the universe rewards action. It's that whole idea. So it's a pretty simple concept. I mean, obviously we know that yes, the world will reward me for action. But what happens is we get bogged down a lot of the times in the planning, the organizing and the analyzing and the kind of like the creating, and we kind of get sidetracked by that and we get bogged down by that, when really what we need to be doing is taking action and putting it into action, becoming action oriented. And he did talk about that like all successful people, super successful people, are action oriented. They're always moving. They're always like moving in the direction of their ideas. When they have an idea, they take action on it immediately. They don't think about it, plan, talk about it, how they're going to do it, when they're going to do it. They just do it. And again, this goes back to that idea that the cure to anything in your business, anything that ails your business, is action. When you act, you really start setting things into motion. And that's why I was saying earlier, when you don't feel like acting, that's when you need to do it the most, because you continue to send that message every time you act and do something. You're sending that message to people in your network, your Facebook network, your day-to-day network, that you're serious about what you're doing, that you are committed to this. People will start paying attention to you. And people who are attracted to that, people who are attracted to someone who's got a plan, who's got goals, and who's going after it, you're going to start attracting those kind of people because you're setting that into motion. And you will start learning. You can learn a lot by reading books and watching trainings, but the real learning happens by doing. And I mean, obviously we got a lot of teachers on the call and on our team, and that's true. Like, you guys know that to be true. It's like you can talk about it, but you've got to get to work putting those things into practice, because you're going to learn it that much more quickly. You're going to get that much more confident. Things that seemed really scary aren't going to be so scary after you put them into action. So, okay. He then talks about, I'm just referring to my notes so that I don't miss anything. Oh, and the other thing he says was, the harder you work, the luckier you get. which really, I mean, luck. I'm saying luck because I think that's one of the myths too in network marketing is that it's all about luck. And that, it'll just fall in my lap. It'll just come to me. It'll happen to me. The people that will do amazing with this will just flock to me. And I mean, that is a myth. That is a myth that a lot of people enter in to any network marketing business with. And so they fail because they themselves don't put in the hard work. And that's really just a horrible reason to fail, is that you just didn't work hard enough. So the more that you work, the luckier you become, which really just means you kind of create your future and you create your success with your own commitment and your own effort and willingness to, take the chances and put yourself out there. So how much work is enough? And we talked about this last week too, that he gets asked this a lot. How much work does it take to get there? And one thing he said, and we talked about, is to him, it's just interesting that people would ask that, because it's like we're always looking for that shortcut, and there's no shortcut to success. And so what he says is these two things you should always consider. Have these two things as your standard. The first one is to do what you can, and then the second is to do the best that you can. So with doing what you can, that just means if you can make one Plexus post a day, then you should make one Plexus post a day. If you can reach out to 3 people a day, then you should reach out to 3 people a day. If you can follow up with 2 people, then you should follow up with 2 people. Do as much as you can and do it. Do what you can and be done with it, And he said that nature kind of follows this pattern. It's like, how tall does an oak tree grow? And the answer is it grows as tall as it can. So nature kind of does all that it can to survive and to flourish. And so we should do the same things, do whatever we can do. That's what we should do every day. And then the next thing is to do the best that you can do. So, really striving to be, as exceptional as you can, to give the best customer service that you can, to be the best leader that you can for your team, pushing yourself and doing your best is a discipline. It's easy to kind of slide by and not perform at your peak, but people are counting on you. I mean, your customers are counting on you. Your team is counting on you. And honestly, I mean, the people who haven't joined you or ordered, I mean, they're counting on you too. So make doing your best a priority, kind of make that a habit of performing at peak performance. And so one of the last things he talked about on this little area was taking action today, taking action now, but then also the idea that when you do that, you're planting the seeds today for the harvest you're going to reap in the future. So if you think about that, then why not plant as many seeds as possible? And why not plant as many seeds as possible so that you have more seeds to harvest in the future? And so when I was reading this, I wrote out to the side, just with what's going on, all the exciting things happening this month in our company. I mean, we've got the double rank promotion bonus, the re-rank bonus happening, the re-rank contest. And these contests are amazing, but we don't ever know when these contests are coming. I mean, nobody in Plexus knew that this is what was going to happen in the month of October. So what's important is we have to be prepared for stuff like this. We have to be planting the seeds so that when things like this come our way, October can be a month of harvest. If we haven't planted the seeds, we have no seeds to harvest. And so you need to always be in action and always be working, because and I don't know that they'll ever do, a contest this big, but we've seen them do contests where that kind of springs people into action. But really, we need to be in action before those contests even come our way, because you just don't know what's coming. And what you plant today is what you're going to be harvesting in the future. So that was just kind of one little thought that came to my mind when I was reading this. So here's a quote that I liked, and it was just speaking to the idea of like how fleeting time is. And it says, begin doing what you want to do now. We only have this moment, sparkling like a star in our hand and melting like a snowflake. And so it's just that idea of valuing time, which I know that we all know time is like our greatest resource. And I mean, I've always known time goes fast, but I think for me, after having kids, I'm like, oh my gosh, time goes so fast. Like time really is our most valuable resource, I feel like. So know the value of time and seize every moment that you've got. And this is, applicable just like for all of life, but don't procrastinate and don't be lazy. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can get done to what you can do today. The time will never be just right. So that's kind of like that elusive idea. Like and we hear that a lot. Like I'm waiting to work my business, or maybe we say this, I'm waiting to work my business until, the kids go back to school, or when I'm on a break, or after I get this big project done with work. And the deal is that just right, that perfect timing, it doesn't exist. It's like an elusive thing that we just continue chasing. And what happens is that someday kind of ends up being never. The timing really will never be just right. We will never be not busy. It just is not going to happen. So just think about that. I mean, you only have today, like it's here and then it's gone. Are you making the most of your time? Are you taking yourself one step closer to the life that you want every single day? The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. And that's just another quote. I know that's like a ton of quotes about taking action now, but a lot of those I just really liked. So mindset is everything. And a lot of times it's our mindset that can be our stumbling block. And I think this is one mindset, everything I do should be fun. And I do think that sometimes this can be a stumbling block with us in our business, because if you're working Plexus for as a business, then just like any business, you need to expect that there are going to be aspects of it that aren't particularly fun. Now, is Plexus fun? Yes. Is this business fun? Yes. There's really fun aspects, tons of fun aspects about it, but there's also things that aren't always like the funnest things to do. But that's part of working a business. You have to continue doing those things that aren't fun. And it's just kind of like, in your traditional job. I mean, like if you are a teacher, and I know as a teacher, you have had days that are not fun. Like I can bet money on that. So you would not leave work and say, God, today was so not fun. I had 0 levels of fun. I don't think I'm just not going to go back tomorrow. I'm not going to do it. I had no fun today. So it's the same thing with Plexus. I mean, you've got to do the things that aren't fun, and just kind of, take the fun with the things that are just kind of the everyday ins and outs. And then the last thing that I want to talk about, and no, I didn't make a slide for that. Oopsies, is the other stumbling block I see, which is fear. And I know we've talked about this a lot before too, but fear can really keep you in a place of inaction. And so it does become not only a stumbling block, but I do think a lot of times it's a protective mechanism, because if you are fearful and you stay in a place of inaction, you take no action, you do nothing, then guess what? You don't fail. You have removed all possible opportunities for failure. But in doing that, you've also removed all possible opportunities to experience success. So, you have to kind of embrace the idea that there are going to be things that bring you some fear. You're going to fail. There's going to be things that you don't succeed at. And again, last week we talked about in setting goals, you can expect to hit 50% of your goals and to miss 50% of your goals. So that right there should kind of put you at ease a little bit, because you can fail, and that's okay. That's just, again, part of it. And here's a couple of things that he talked about was Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times. Oprah was fired from one of her early anchor jobs after being labeled unfit for TV. And Michael Jordan was actually cut from his high school basketball team. And Lady Gaga was dropped from Def Jam Records. So those people all had some major failures, but clearly, obviously, they went on to do pretty amazing things. So failure is only final if you let it be. if you have a setback, if you have a challenge in this business and you quit or you give up, then yes, then you have lost. Then that is a permanent, failure. You've let it kind of get the best of you. But there's no shame. There's nothing wrong in getting knocked down, dusting yourself off, standing back up, and moving forward, doing it again. And successful people know that. I mean, successful people know that you have to fail forward. You have to learn from your mistakes, embrace them, and move on. And it reminded me, I shared this video when I saw it. I think it was, this is probably wrong, but it was a girl who was a woman. And I think she was the CEO of Spanx. I could be wrong, but she was sharing this little interview, and it was like a video that was floating around Facebook. And she said when she was growing up, her dad, every night at dinner, when they would sit down to eat as a family, he would say, "Tell me one thing you failed at today." And they would have to go around, and her and her siblings would have to say something that they tried to do that they failed at. And so she said what that did was just really reframed for her the idea of failing, because her dad, he actually would get kind of like frustrated or upset if they didn't have anything. He's like, "You didn't try hard enough today. Like, you didn't take on enough new experiences. You need to fail at something." And so just kind of reframing that. So for her, failure was never like scary. It was never the enemy. She never went into anything thinking, what if I fail? That was like not even on her radar. And so obviously she went on to become a very successful CEO. And so I love that idea of kind of reframing your failure to not just shy away from it, but to like actively invite failure into your life, and because you know that you're going to learn from it. So, and the last thing I'll say about fear is knowing that we are going to have things that we're afraid of. And that wonderful Sapphire ambassador that spoke at convention, I can't think of her name, but she said, whatever you do, even if you're afraid, just do it afraid. Everyone that was on stage that was a jewel has done something they've been afraid of. They've had fear to do, but they did it anyway, and they did it afraid. And so not waiting for that fear to kind of melt away, but like just embracing it and taking kind of fear along for the ride. And so this is the last thing that I'll say, and then I'll stop our recording, and we can chat for a little bit. But and I know you guys have heard this quote, but it says, "We must understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than the fear." And so saying to yourself, I cannot fail, I can only learn, and I can only grow. And in fact, he suggests writing that down and repeating it to yourself every day. I cannot fail, I can only learn, and I can only grow. So that concludes just the last final thoughts he had in that book. And thanks you guys for hanging with us for the last 5 weeks as we worked through some of the really good just takeaways that he shares in his book. I really appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and we'll see all of you guys next week. Thanks a lot.